You're listening to In Good Health, the trusted news source for medicine, science, and technology. I'm Elizabeth Westfield.
I'm Mayan Vasta Betancourt.
And I'm Greg Johnson. This week, doctors helping doctors in war-torn Ukraine via a medical app that offers clinical support during a crisis.
5,000 physicians in Ukraine that are using the app. We also have specialists from all over the world who are giving peer-to-peer review.
But first, who's making sure our loved ones' remains are safe?
The donor having the autonomy, even if they're not there anymore, they don't oppose to the fact that they're being donated is really important.
All that and more this week on In Good Health. Organ donation is a highly regulated system to protect both the donors and recipients. Federal and state laws protect against exploitation and trafficking while ensuring a fair and ethical process. But what's surprising is that this strict oversight doesn't really apply to the rest of the body. Each year, thousands of people donate their bodies to science to be used for medical education or research purposes. But aside from a 1968 law, the human body donation market is essentially the Wild West of science. Joy Balta says this lack of oversight and regulation has led to a dangerous absence of accountability for this industry.
We know nothing actually about what happens. So some of the research that I've done, my PhD students have looked into was asking body donation programs about kind of what they do, their operations. We've had donation programs that have refused to be part of the survey. Some of them said that their even administration advised them not to participate because that would maybe put them at higher risk and being exposed to kind of what's happening, what they're doing.
Balta is a professor of anatomy and founding director of the Anatomy Learning Institute at Point Loma Nazarene University. He says that we shouldn't assume all donation centers are operating illegally or unethically, but there's a lot of fear of what could be happening due to this lack of oversight, as well as past cases. Over the years, various companies in this industry have been exposed for using bodies without consent, illegally selling body parts, and desecrating the remains. Some notable cases have involved the bodies of loved ones being sold to the Department of Defense and used without consent in explosion and vehicle crash testing.
There should be some law to ensure that illegal activities are not happening. And stuff happens all the time. There's been, I'm not going to necessarily name kind of cases, but there's multiple cases that are from last year and the year before and the year before that. So we're not living in history. This is still happening today. And it's going to continue to happen until we do regulate this space. There's always going to be some bad actors that are going to kind of abuse the fact that there's no oversight for their best interest.
In an effort to establish some sort of guidelines, the American Association for Anatomy created a task force to come up with the best practices and recommended standards. It was published in 2024, but Balta, who is a contributor on the project, says the finished product was years in the making.
It took years to be able to establish a committee, and then it took years to build those best practices. It wasn't a short process. There were multiple people involved in that document. Each of us came from different backgrounds. Some of us are faculty teaching anatomy. Some of us are administrators of body donation programs. I was the director of the body donation program and anatomical services at Ohio State University at the time.
With so many different perspectives, Balta says it took a while to create a document that everyone agreed represented a fair and ethical perspective on human body donation. The long process also may have stemmed from the fact that there had never been anything like this published before, meaning that an entire industry profiting off the sale of human remains has been operating without official guidelines and continues to function without any meaningful oversight.
That was the first comprehensive best practices document. Unfortunately, there aren't even laws around some of those areas. So we are asking people to be ethical and follow best practices, even though there isn't a regulatory body that oversees this and ensures that it's being mandated. We're just hoping that people and their leadership would kind of push to use those best practices to ensure that we're advocating for those donors and we're treating them in the most ethical way after they've given their bodies to us after they've passed.
Balta hopes this document informs future legislation, but that dream may be far from coming true. The Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, passed in 1968, is the most universal law we have for donations. It mainly dictates who can authorize an anatomical donation and gives guidance on that process. However, it doesn't really touch on what the expectations are after a body is donated.
There's kind of some oversight in some states. So, for example, there's like a board, an anatomical gift board in Florida that in theory there should be overseeing, but they don't have any legal authority to implement anything. So like if they want to inspect something, they don't have the authority to demand that. They don't have the authority to enforce something. So there's no legal power behind their work. But yeah, different states do have different applications of it, and it varies per state, but does not go into the post-donation part when we're working with the donor, when the donor is in the facility. So you have a chain of custody. The donor leaves the mortuary, becomes to the facility, and that's it when it comes to kind of paperwork until it leaves the facility.
There's essentially no governing body doing checks on these facilities to make sure that these companies are running their operations safely and ethically. Balta says that most of the cases of illegal activity we know about are because of insider whistleblowers or family members of a donated body.
That only shows you that there could be more happening. We're just waiting for things to kind of come out for us to know about it.
But while this has been the standard of practice in America for decades, Balta says it's much different in other countries.
So I trained and taught in Europe. So I studied in Scotland and I taught there and in Ireland, and they have inspectors. There's an inspector of anatomy, somebody who comes and inspects the facilities, inspects the documentation, has the authority to shut down a body donation program. In the UK, there is the King's Inspector at the moment of anatomy, and that's their job. There's the Human Tissue Act that governs the space, and it's well managed. You don't hear there aren't stories that come out like that over there because there's more oversight, because there are people working to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Balta says a main hurdle to having those same standards in America is having to get all the states on the same page.
I'm not saying that that's a reason not to. What I'm saying, it just makes it a little bit harder. But also, politics is politics. There needs to be a good reason for something to be pushed through the agenda. If it's not loud enough, then politicians, I'm not sure that it's going to be going on their agenda, on the priority list of their agenda. And we're not even close. We're not even kind of having the conversations that hopefully one day we will. We're not having that conversation. And I think hopefully we're able to start that conversation soon.
There are a few points Balta thinks need to be at the top of these discussions. One being how we treat unclaimed bodies. Earlier this year, Radio Health Journal released a segment revealing the thousands of bodies in America that go unclaimed each year. Instead, they're left to the state and usually cremated. However, most counties are allowed to donate these remains to science without consent from the deceased or their family. A 2023 paper published in JAMA looking at Texas medical schools found that their use of unclaimed bodies jumped from 64 bodies in 2017 to 446 in 2021. But is that unethical? Since it falls into a gray area for many people, it's a topic Balta believes needs more attention and guidance.
This body is contributing towards science and benefiting science and advancing medicine, but that's not a good enough reason to kind of donate the body or give a body. It's not even donated, it's being given without knowing that this could be somebody who had religious beliefs that could go against that. And that's not okay. We shouldn't be making those decisions for financial reasons. The ethical reasons and considerations of that human body should come first. We can't just assume that they're okay with it or that because they were unclaimed, we're able to benefit from their donation.
Another priority for Balta is making sure donation programs all have a transparent and standard structure for applications. Consent forms can vary drastically from one institution to the next. Balta says that some completely refuse to disclose how they'll use the body once it's donated. Many forms list what types of research could be done to the body, but some don't even give an option to opt out of anything the donor or loved one is uncomfortable with.
Yes, it's good to know that these are the ways I'm going to be donating my body to, but can I say I don't want to? And I think We might have like a place where they can write comments, but we don't give like a check mark, like yes for this, no for that, yes for that. And there are multiple reasons for that. But yeah, I think that would be really helpful so that people are aware. And in some places, the consent form says it's just one sentence, I am donating my body to this donation program. That's it. Doesn't go through their rights, doesn't go through what's going to happen at like after disposition of the human remains. Usually forms are multiple pages, but you could have a form that is one sentence.
Balta has published research looking through consent forms across the U.S. and notes how drastically these applications can vary. But if we zoom out and look at the industry as a whole, a larger issue may be the fact that parts of the human body donation industry are for profit. Balta and the rest of the task force argue in their paper that the most ethical way to be conducting business in this field is to operate under revenue neutrality. While most university programs are nonprofit, there are other companies actively profiting off the sale of human remains.
There are the body donation programs that are staff of a university. There are faculty members, but they're not working for themselves. They're not trying to make money that they're going to benefit from. And hopefully they're working towards the revenue neutrality. And that's what we're trying to push for. The for-profit companies don't have to think about that. They don't have to. And some of them are. I don't want to kind of lump everybody. Some of them are better than others. Can we say like, oh, we don't need those for-profit companies. We should just rely on body donation programs and like get rid of those? I don't know if I could say that, unfortunately.
The main hurdle being that universities sometimes need to use these companies to source bodies. Balta says there's simply not enough body donation programs at universities to fill the need.
If we had enough body donation programs, we wouldn't need to rely on for-profit companies. And I'll give you an example of that. This fall 2025, I was not able to request donors from my local donation programs. And that was 2 weeks before the start of the semester. And I was stuck thinking, what am I going to do? I've written best practices and I don't want to kind of go towards for-profit companies. And again, some of them are better than others. So there's also wisdom in who we work with. But for my own kind of best practice, I would prefer to work with a body donation program. I communicated with donation programs across the country, and I was willing to have donors come from states that are very far away because I would rather work with donation programs. But we don't have enough donations happening in donation programs.
Balta says people may choose to donate their body to a company because they cover more costs or are simply the only option someone is aware of. So while Balta's ideal world would be that there are no for-profit companies in this space, that's not realistic right now. You can find more information about Joy Balta and all of our guests on our website, ingoodhealthpodcast.org. For more behind the scenes, follow In Good Health Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. I'm Elizabeth Westfield.
Coming up, the technology that's helping train doctors during war, when In Good Health returns. It's been 3 years since Russian forces mounted a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, the fighting there is still in full force. Many citizens have fled the eastern part of the country where the war rages on, or have fled the country altogether. This includes many doctors, which has created a medical crisis for the relatively few doctors that remain. There just aren't enough medical specialists left in Ukraine to serve the remaining population. Because of staffing shortages in hospitals and medical centers, patients needing specialized care often end up seeing the local pediatrician or a first-year resident who may not know how to address their issues, like a recent heart attack or even an abscessed tooth.
We're seeing physicians being overwhelmed. A lot of physicians have moved from rural areas of Ukraine, so there's definitely shortage of specialists. And for example, where now we're seeing a family physician who has to help deliver babies in the basement without any electricity because their town is surrounded by Russian forces. So it's definitely became very challenging, and the resources are scarce because the country is at war.
That's Dr. Olga Myhudiak, Chief Operating Officer of Global Medical Knowledge Alliance, also known as GMKA. It's a nonprofit organization that provides medical training and educational webinars for Ukrainian doctors. GMKA was co-founded in 2017 before the war started by Dr. Nelia Melnichek, an associate surgeon at Brigham and Women's Hospital and assistant professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School. Seeing what was happening in her beloved country from afar, Melnichek knew she had to do something to help her fellow countrymen. That's when she heard a story that gave her an idea for a medical app that would assist doctors in Ukraine from anywhere in the world.
One of our resident physicians was practicing in a small town, and he had a case with a patient with a tooth abscess, and he didn't know how to pretty much deal with it. So he called his colleague at a bigger hospital in Kyiv, who guided him through the entire procedure via a video call. And therefore, this resident or junior physician was able to help this patient. And that is how the idea for Heal UA app, which provides peer-to-peer reviews, was created.
With the help of GMKA and a technology company in Ukraine called Impact, Melnichek created a mobile app called Heal UA that provides peer-to-peer support to medical professionals in Ukraine with other medical professionals in the US and around the world. She knew the tool needed to be a mobile app rather than a computer program so that it could be accessed anywhere with a smartphone. Doctors can take a photo of the patient's injury or clinical presentation and submit a case on the spot. The Heal UA app, which can be downloaded for free, was up and running 3 months after the war started. With this app, isolated Ukrainian physicians can submit a case and get a second opinion usually within 24 to 48 hours.
It's very hard conditions now in hospitals to work. So it's very important when we have someone that could give us any advices. And we really appreciate that we can get this advice very quickly by using Heal app. Because when we download our cases, we can receive answers very quickly and from doctors from Ukraine, but also what is very important for us, we have advices from doctors from USA. And it really helps when, you have doubts what to do, and especially in a low setting conditions that sometimes we need to work through. So it's wonderful to have opportunity to have a feedback from other doctors.
That's Dr. Olya Kostenchak, an oncology hematologist working in Western Ukraine. She was assigned an unconscious lymphoma patient and didn't have the necessary experience to provide proper treatment. Luckily, a specialist in Boston was able to provide her with a diagnosis and treatment protocol through the Heal UA app.
He gave the advice with diagnosis steps and what we can do in our setting, and also how can we manage this patient. And by the way, not only this, but we leave comments about how is this patient going on now. So it's not just for the beginning, but through the whole course of treatment, this patient. And for me, it's just wonderful.
A team at GMKA monitors all submissions to make sure they're from verified physicians on both ends. They also monitor comments to make sure they're medically appropriate. The founders of GMKA hope to see the app used around the world wherever physician and specialist shortages exist, such as in rural India and Africa.
The model is very replicable and it could be used all over the world. And then also this serves the app and the fact that physicians are seeing these different cases. I mean, even in the United States, we see physicians giving peer-to-peer review. They're seeing cases that they might not see in the United States because, Ukraine or any other country is at war and there is a conflict. So this serves also as that bi-directional educational opportunity because specialists can learn from one another.
Dr. Daria Kizub is a Ukrainian physician practicing at a major cancer center in the United States and offers peer-to-peer review through the app. She says that while posted cases are complex and that this ability to get a second opinion from doctors in the U.S. is invaluable, she cautions against overstating the role of international expertise.
I would like to not overstate the role of international physicians and expertise in this because I think, in Ukraine there's also a good amount of expertise where we were not available. Of course, it's very helpful, but I don't know that necessarily the patient would die in most cases if this was not available.
However, she does think the app helps to expedite Ukrainian patients' treatments.
One case I can think of is a patient with an advanced form of breast cancer that is very aggressive, triple negative breast cancer. And the question was, do we need to do advanced diagnostics for this patient, or can we just treat them with a targeted drug? Because the advanced diagnostics, the kind of lumbar puncture and kind of waiting for the result would have delayed treatment. So I said, in my practice, or in our practice, you can just treat with this targeted drug. So the patient was able to get treatment faster. And this is for a condition where, it can progress very quickly and patients can die generally within, on average, they generally live about 3 months. So I think it was useful, my advice for the patient to get treatment sooner.
Mahyodiak says the greatest challenge in creating the app was translating from Ukrainian to English and vice versa. But she says that AI technology provided a quick solve to that problem.
We're working with Google where we have an AI tool with translation because that was one of our biggest challenges, the translation aspect, and now being able to have AI translation through Google for cases, we're able to reach more physicians and then also more users who'll be able to give peer-to-peer reviews. And the goal is to expand this globally, of course.
You can learn more about the Heal UA app and all of our guests by visiting our website at ingoodhealthpodcast.org. For more behind the scenes, follow In Good Health Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer this week is Polly Hansen. Our lead producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Greg Johnson.
In Good Health returns in just a moment. And now, a Progressive ad brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive could save big with Progressive. This has been a Progressive ad from Progressive. See if you could save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE or progressive.com.
Medical notes this week. We can diagnose food allergies earlier than ever before. Since blood tests have high rates of false positives, the current standard for diagnosing a food allergy is consuming the product in front of a physician. However, a study in the Journal of Clinical Investigation could change this process altogether. Researchers found that measuring water loss from the skin can predict a severe reaction to food quicker and easier than current testing methods. Yet another reason to eat more produce. Fruits and vegetables contain compounds called flavonoids, which have anti-cancer, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory properties. Research published in the journal Endocrinology shows how flavonoids may reduce the risk and severity of endometriosis. Researchers hope this connection will help drug development for the painful condition. New research could help veterans get the treatment they need. Gulf War illness can cause joint pain, memory lapses, and insomnia. It affects nearly 250,000 veterans, but all diagnoses are based on self-reported symptoms. Luckily, research in PLUS ONE has found a biological measurement to help physicians catch the disease. A simple blood test can help confirm a diagnosis and show whether or not a specific treatment is working. And finally, should grade school classrooms be more active? Literacy skills are usually taught to young kids while seated at a desk, but this may be hindering their ability to absorb the information. Research in the journal Educational Psychology Review studied 57 first graders in Denmark. One group of students learned how to sound out letters at a desk, while the other group used their body to act out the shape of the letter. The kids whose learning involved movement doubled their test scores in spelling and letter recognition after just 4 weeks. And that's Medical Notes this week. I'm Mayan Vasta Betancourt.
Thank you for joining us this week and every week as we break down the science stories you need to know. You can find all of our past segments and guests on our website at ingoodhealthpodcast.org or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for more behind-the-scenes content. Tune in next week for another edition of In Good Health.